That's us. The Krypton report. Yeah. What is up, James Flippin' Cole?
Oh, it's been a long week and it's only Tuesday.
Welcome. If you're joining us, I am Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow, and with me, as always, James Cole, the Superman of Red, the Man of Steel himself. We got a lot to chat about today. A lot. Now, I do want to first thing off the gate here is we did not do our live Superman Saturdays this Saturday because come Thursday night into Friday, we had some issues where YouTube had deleted our channel and said that we had violated something. I don't even know. And I had to fill out the whole like what do you call it, like appeal form and everything. And then eventually it was approved and they're like, oh, we're sorry, we hope we didn't blah 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 cause any problems. And I was just like, holy crap, dude, I was causing problems, dude. I was pissed. Like I'm freaked out. Like I've spent a lot of time, we've been working on building up our YouTube and everything, but we were still waiting to hear about it being in the clear. So we didn't get around to that because we had already kind of like put that on the side burner until we figured out this whole YouTube thing. So we will resume that coming Saturday. If you're like, what are you guys talking about? Well, that's this right here. Superman, the animated series, live rewatch, 9 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. Sometimes we just switch between on the Saturdays where you got it streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Used to be on X until now they will only let you stream on X if you're a paid X subscriber. We've been going through Superman the Animated Series every Saturday morning. Most of the time, our good friend Nate McKenzie from the Superman the Animated Series podcast has been joining us. And it's been a good time. Just like, grab your bowl of cereal, sit back, watch cartoons Saturday mornings.
Right. Have some coffee, watch Superman the Animated Series. Haven't done that since since my son was little.
I mean,
both my kids are only a year apart, so they were both.
I have not watched the animated series straight through in about almost 10 years because it was when Solomon's 9, he'll be 10 in January, but it was right when he was born. I watched it when I was up with him. So it's a nice kind of going back and watching it straight. This is our QR code to all of our links. James and I have been working on building up our $1 Patreon. You'll see the advertisement for that in the broadcast, but we do special episodes of James's monthly horror, The Gore Report. He's got one episode out. Next one's coming up.
Yep. Last one was Slasher September on Friday the 13th. And it's October, so you can imagine what we're going with on the first October film.
James has had a rad idea with going through reviewing and talking horror each month, but going about it through the holidays, which is pretty neat. We also James and I do the Supernatural Report. It's usually monthly. We did get behind just because of my family situation, but we are getting back on track with the Supernatural Report as we're going back through and we're doing commentaries as we watch the episodes of Supernatural, doing something a little bit different than just same old of just, watching it and talking about it, kind of like living it together. And then we also just do specials like a few months ago or just recently, there's a special that popped up that Jeannie and I did. Jeannie and I have been watching the Star Wars film saga and commentating with those. And we're getting back on track with those. Like I said, we had a family tragedy that kind of threw some things, to the wind with that. But it's just a buck and it's awesome. And if you
haven't gotten together yet to talk about Beetlejuice.
I know. That'd be a great one.
That came out on digital, so more people might see that soon.
We might end up recording that this month because it is a Halloween film. But we're going to kickstart this conversation with a little bit of new. We're going to do it a little bit differently. Okay, we're going to kind of break this up in segments here. So what's going to happen here? James and I are going to talk a little bit of Joker 2. And then we're going to talk about our next big topic. And then then you will hear Jeannie and I's discussion on Joker 2. I went ahead and Jeannie and I saw it. We released it on the Patreon, but I thought I'd go ahead and attach it here because it was a great discussion. We recorded it in the car on the drive home from the movie, just kind of our first response. But now since James has seen it, we haven't talked about it. Like that's one
No,
I was trying to us not to talk about it.
let's say you guys saw it on Thursday and I
Yep.
saw it on Sunday. So,
And
we're
I did not want us to talk about it at all if we can keep from it.
yeah, we haven't. I haven't listened to anything on it either. I've got a whole bunch in my queue,
And
few different
Brian
reviews I want to listen to.
and our good pal Brian is doing. I'm supposed to join him on Sunday evening for a Joker special, and that's when he wants to talk about it. So I haven't even talked with Brian about it at all. So it's
Oh
kind of been
wow.
weird because I haven't really. It's just been me and Jania. But we're going to talk about we are at some point still trying to. We were going to do for October. We were going to do our commentary for the Patreon on Joker. But we've had to reschedule 4 times because of life, because we were going to do one of those me
Yeah.
and James, Jamie and Jania evenings, and we just had to reschedule multiple times. So it's been fun. But let's talk a little Joker
Cool.
Folia do, because it's not doing so great. I'm going to bring this up first. Ready? The cinema score.
Yeah.
A D. This is the one time you don't. D is not good, guys. D is not good.
Not for the D there.
No. The film is not doing well. Last I checked, it only done 120 million worldwide, not domestic, worldwide. And the budget for this was almost 200 million.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, when you consider that the first film cost was about 50, 60 million. Okay, I think that and Joaquin, Lady Gaga, and Todd Phillips, I think their salaries pretty much equaled up to the budget of the first film.
Yeah. Well, and then they had so many more people in this movie. They had a very good cast in the first one, but this was a broader cast. There was a lot of different people in Arthur's life at this time, because in the first one there was only a couple of people in his life at this time.
Yes, but at the same time, that does not the creative team behind this. They took advantage of Warner Brothers, oh, let's get some big payouts because of how good the first movie did, and they're like, okay, here we go. They had the clout,
Right.
And yeah, they took advantage. But hey, James, let's hear your thoughts on Joker.
Spoiler free right up front. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was very well done, very well acted. We've made plenty of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers jokes on here. We're both musical people, so
we are going to do that one day. We are on the Patreon. We will be doing. Jania, can you hear me? Yeah, one day on Patreon, me, you, James, and Jamie, we're watching Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. She said that'll be awesome.
All right. So I enjoyed that. I think that's messing with people right now. I know that was a contested part of the film when it was in development, but I enjoyed the movie. It was definitely a sequel. The way he was in the first one, you can kind of see it building up to the Joker, but it's not, but it wasn't. So it wasn't really that much that bad, or it wasn't a problem for me, where they ended up taking the whole thing, because it was all about the psychology of him and from his point of view and things like that in the first and the second one. So for the most part, I enjoyed the movie quite a bit the entire time that I was there. I liked it. Jamie liked it. She loved it. She loved the first one. and she only saw the first one for the first time on Saturday, and we went and saw the second one on Sunday. So,
before we get into like a little bit more discussion about it, what would you give it letter wise?
I mean, for me, because like I said, the way I liked it as, and it's hard to say because it's not a comic book movie,
No,
even though it's
it's not.
attached. It doesn't even have the DC brand on it.
It didn't. The first one didn't either.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I expected. One of my guess was this movie would have been the first one to bear the DC Elseworlds logo because we
Right.
have it. We're from DC Studios. But what's interesting, little side note, is that was what we were told, but we didn't even get that
That is what he
logo.
said in that last January
Right.
thing coming out. He discussed Elseworlds and the Elseworld brand, and Joker 2 was one of the movies he listed.
And the other was Matt Reeves' stuff. So then when I kind of suspected we may or may not get it with Joker 2 because they've kind of Todd Phillips doesn't really want to admit like he's in the DC world as much as he is, but that's another story. But we haven't seen that logo, the DC Studios Elseworlds, because I expected to see it on Penguin, being that that's part of the Matt Reeves verse, and we haven't seen it over there. So I'm curious if we'll see it with the Batman 2. But like I said, the first Joker didn't even really acknowledge the DC because, well,
all you had was Gotham and the Wayne family.
Yeah, I mean,
that's literally it.
And we'll talk about this more, but I mean, it's a movie about mental health. It's a movie about a character, and if you just change everyone's name, it's still the same movie. It's still the same story. You call Arthur is not Joker, he's the clown. Gotham is New York. It's still everything plays the exact same. And even in Joker 2, they acknowledge that Gotham City is in the state of New York.
Interesting, because in the Penguin, it's in New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, but that's more in that world of actual like where you're kind
when it comes to like the locations, like if you actually looked at that like one book or whatever with the DC maps, like Gotham is like in New Jersey, but some people are like New York, New Jersey,
but they're not.
That's where it is.
But they never actually acknowledge the state that it's in.
Yeah,
like Metropolis is always it's Metropolis. They never say what state it's in unless you're watching Smallville. Then for some reason it's in Kansas. But anyways, I totally forgot. But okay, so now James, you were getting there. What was your letter grade for it?
Okay, so yeah, my letter grade for Joker Folie à Deux is a B.
Ooh, James might be the only person on the internet. I will give you a Jania gave it a D and I gave it a C.
Yeah.
And now we're going to jump over the spoiler wall. And here we go. Okay. I'm not going to go really into all my thoughts because like I said, I'm going to attach me and Jania's conversation. My biggest issues with this film, it was overinflated. It was too long. There's certain things you could trim. The music part never, as far as that part, the film was pretty much what I expected as far as style, tone, story, structure.
Yeah.
As far as how the music played into it, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Pretty much.
I went into the movie. I told Jania, I'm not going to think of this as a comic book movie. I'm going in and I'm going to analyze this as a film in itself. No, like that's not in the comics because I knew they're not playing true to these characters. But I feel like the story was just kind of meh. Certain things in it with certain characters, I felt like they were trying to build something, but they didn't. It just kind of went flat. And then in the end, like with the end of the courtroom scene, I'm thinking is this movie going to retroactively make Joker worse? Like, are you now going to watch Joker after watching this and be like, it's not as good?
Not in my opinion, watching them both together, because
It'll be interesting
it's
to
the
watch them
final
back.
goodbye,
And I think
that's what it means. So that's like, they told you pretty much what was going to happen in it, but it's a journey, for this guy going from being alone and broken and abused to like being adored and getting attention, but it also not being the attention that he ultimately wanted to have. Or it kind of makes it seem, so it's just the journey, you know what I
mhm,
mean? One and two together. Because in the end in this film, I mean, basically your primary antagonist, as it looks like it's the outside world.
yeah.
It's the guards at Arkham, it's the courtroom, it's the media, it's the lawyers, it's it makes it seem like the world is the primary antagonist. And basically in the end, the biggest antagonist he had was Harley.
Oh yeah.
She manipulated and used him. She just, she fell in love with this idea and used him until there was nothing left.
And you're talking about Lee, because we can't say Harley Quinn, but one Harley Quinzel one time, and then the rest of the time it's Lee, because we can't.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is Lee.
Uh, the thing is, you are going on this journey. You are with Arthur, and Todd Phillips has come out and said he was always Arthur. He was never the Joker. He told us back when the first Joker movie came out, but people didn't listen. So everyone had these expectations of what this movie was going to be. Um, and
Well,
it
it's
didn't.
funny because you can't say Joker without calling him the Joker so many times. You know what I mean?
They say the
And
Joker one time in this movie. The rest of it, it's
and
just Joker.
and that's from the media point of view, the Joker.
Hmm.
But Joker was just him.
But that's my
It
problem
was
in
his.
this.
It was kind of the act he eventually put on. It's he was raised and he was made to believe like the character, the
Mhm.
persona, the comedian, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what he had basically dedicated his life to.
Yeah, and
So he was Joker. He wasn't the Joker. He was just Joker.
mhm. And that's kind of the thing is because they try to do this whole thing where they try to say that the Joker was almost like a split personality, and
Well,
I
that's
just like
your clinical diagnosis and your courtroom law defense.
yeah, and I was like,
So
mm.
it wasn't necessarily him either.
Yeah, it just I don't know.
It was the lawyers. The entire both films is told from the character perspective, and
In the
uh,
first film, we
there's something I really love about it. It just it that type of the way the storytelling is told, the way the story is told from his point of view is just something that appeals to me.
the first film establishes he is very much an unreliable narrator. We know this, and it plays with the first film plays with us a little bit. And the first movie, okay, in the final scenes of the movie, he's being interviewed. He's in like the hospital, right? And he comes walking out, and it looks like he's walking with blood footprints. He's barefooted. So the whole time I'm watching this movie, they keep talking about how many people Arthur's killed. That event is never referenced.
No.
So I'm like, okay. And then I'm sitting there watching this, like, what if this movie bookends with that scene? And like this movie was like in his head because the first movie plays with our mind more of what's real, what's not real.
Yeah,
And
because
for the
this one, it's much more explicit as to what's in his head and what is not.
right, the musical stuff is what's in his head. Like he never dons the full
Almost all of the musical stuff.
yeah, you can tell because
Yeah,
the
the
one
performative music stuff
yeah.
where yeah, that's all in his head.
because
No matter how little or big.
he never dons the full Joker get up unless it's in his head. Because like he doesn't have the green hair when he does the music, like he has the green hair in the makeup. You know, in the real world, so to speak, he puts on the makeup, but he doesn't ever have the green hair. So like he never takes the full persona until he's um in his head. So this pretty much plays there's only like one scene I feel that can be argued that maybe that was in his head. Um but even then we don't know. There's no evidence either way. And I think that's part of people are looking for that type of stuff in this movie. Like I said, the first film really plays around with images and stuff of what's really going on.
Oh
And
yeah,
this one,
times
and
on the clock and
yeah, and in certain events, the way they play out. But this one doesn't do that. And I think that was kind of, I don't know if I want to say a letdown, but I feel there's things in this movie that, okay, I'm going to say this. I feel that there's a whole bigger Harley part or subplot that was cut out of this movie.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that her part ultimately was limited though. Um because most of it was just most of her appearances and performance, or at least half of her performances in the film, were the musical numbers in his head.
Yeah. Because let's look at this. We see his routine of getting up, taking his meds, and everything. Then we get a scene where he goes to take his medicine. He looks at the cup and then looks at the nurse. And the nurse's face is only in the reflection. It's very straight. And he smiles and he takes his pills. And then later he says, I've already stopped taking my meds. Okay. Harley talks about she wants Joker. She always calls him Joker. She wants Joker. Okay. Jania asked me at one point, do you think she's a plant? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this. Okay. And then there's parts where we find out that everything she's told Arthur is basically a lie. She checked herself in there. She comes from money and that she has her master's degree in psychology. Okay.
Which basically was how she could get there. She's crazy herself, but she got herself in. She got herself to meet him. She wanted the Joker. She was obsessed with the Joker. And ultimately, when he reveals that there is no Joker, that he's just Arthur, she
Leave.
abandons him.
Right. So think about this.
Like she even lied to him that she was pregnant, so that
Did
way
she
he
lie? That's
wouldn't.
the thing is that's like the
I
one
feel like she did.
because when he confronts her later, she doesn't really acknowledge either way. I feel like that's going to be one of the big things that people are going to argue and debate about. Was that
Yeah.
real? Wasn't real? Because she comes to see him in solitary, and and that's one of those scenes you're like, okay, did that really happen or not? And if she comes from money, it's very easy. The idea that she just slipped the guards some money, they let her in because we know it's a corrupt system at Arkham. Go
Yeah.
to when she's in the
And it
courtroom.
ends with that too. It ends with a corrupt system.
Yeah. Go to the courtroom. Okay. The first time they're in court, there is one chair in the back that's open, but there's people lining the walls. And she gets in and then sits down in the chair. And you can tell that his attorney doesn't like her being there, but she keeps making her way in there. She makes her way outside. So she has to have some way of getting in there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see that she got Arthur's old apartment and she's living there. And then, like, this is one of the big things for me. Okay. I'm going to pull this up. This shot right here is not in the movie.
Nope.
Okay. That shot goes along with the scene of her, like she's doing her makeup and stuff, and she's recreating images of Arthur in the first film. Like she's almost like, because we see her put a gun to her head, and we're left um thinking that, what'd she do, right?
Yeah,
And,
I thought he was gonna go all the way back to the apartment and find her.
well, that's what I thought he was going to happen too. But then when he meets her on the stairs, she's in this outfit with this
Yes,
hair
she
that she,
is.
okay. And Todd Phillips has said that scene really does happen of her on the stairs. Okay. So the whole reason for her to still have the makeup on, for her hair to be cut, is lost. Like, why did she do this? Okay. So I really feel like there was more to her character going on, because they referenced this film, a made for TV movie that she said about 20 times, but then she says later like 5 times.
Yeah.
That she was obsessed with. Okay. We never see any of that in the movie. And what I'm thinking is she's watched this movie, she's learned this movie, and she's almost ritualistically doing the exact same steps that Arthur did. When you think about the scenes that led him, where he's doing his makeup and where he is becoming Joker.
Right.
And I'm just feeling that there was more to her character
Well,
than
let me
we got. Like they just were like, yeah, because they've used this image and her like that in a lot of promo stuff, and that's not even, like I said, in
it's
the
not in the
film.
movie. Yeah. Well, let me throw this your way in that just with that idea. The first one made so much money. So who wanted to basically be the primary backer of the second one?
Warner Brothers, because
Exactly. They
because
weren't the primary on the first one.
they split, they threw
So
in like,
what they do in the office, time limits and, pace and all this other crap, you know.
oh, they didn't touch this. That's the thing, is like they let Todd do what he wanted because they wanted another big payday. Because if you're talking time limits and pacing, then this movie should have been like an hour 45, because there's certain scenes that go on so long. And that's what I'm saying, where even Jania's like, I'm bored because nothing's happening. And even
Yeah.
some of the sequences of like the what should be entertaining of the music and stuff, you're not really entertained, and you're just kind of like, just dangling through. It's like the movie got to a point where it was like, I don't know what to do now. And I would find it more interesting to be fueling this character of Harley, like as much footage as you shot, put her in there, because people love this character.
Right. Well, I mean, I may have liked the movie. I may have really liked it and enjoyed it, and I will buy it. And when I buy it, I will watch it again. But
Oh, I
then
can't
it'll
wait to
probably
commentate.
sit on the shelf until we do a commentary, or
Oh, we're gonna do a commentary like
like,
right after this thing comes out, like
okay,
tonight.
or I mean, and then after that, I don't know when I will.
It
Honestly, put it on.
Right, and it's
I
like
haven't watched the first one in 2 years, probably.
I watched the first one when it was in
And
theaters, and then I bought it, and then I watched it one other time. And it's a good movie, but it's not one I'm gonna throw in all the time. And
exactly, it is a great movie. I think it's fantastic. It's so well done.
I told Jania, like, I look forward to watching this one again with you and her and doing the commentary for it,
Right.
because I feel like there's stuff to talk about. I mean,
I
quickly,
do too. Well, go ahead.
they wasted my boy Harvey Dent. They just threw his name out there. Why? But I feel like Harvey Dent in this movie is what like Bruce Wayne, Alfred, and Thomas Wayne were to the other movie. A
Yeah.
name, a figurehead to just use that comic book. Um, I looked for parallels between, you had 3 prison guards with the 3 people that Arthur killed on the subway. like parallels. And I feel like that's an issue with the movie, is that you're looking more in depth for things that aren't really
That's
being paid
probably
off.
why they didn't hide as much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Now,
the
what?
first one was very cerebral in that, and then you come in the second one, you make it from a standpoint of that they're going to be looking at things like that.
Now, let's now I told Jania something that I noticed. James, what cartoon were they watching in prison?
Pepe Le Pew,
And what is Pepe Le Pew about?
a French skunk
A French
who's
skunk.
very forward.
But Pepe Le Pew is a French skunk who's in love with a cat who's been painted like a skunk, who's not really a skunk, and is forcing the cat to try to be something it's not. So if you look at it as in a parallel, Harley is Pepe and Arthur is the cat,
Right.
because he's Arthur, but he's painted as the Joker, and that's not really who he is. And in the movie, I was waiting to see it be revealed that Harley or Lee was more of the antagonist. Like she was behind getting, like I said earlier, him not to have his meds, him being moved to the musical or into the lighter, section of the prison so they can meet, her being responsible for the bomb that went off, or at the end she was going to kind of come out and be more of like the Joker, like she was going to try to take the mantle or something and lead the crazed revolution or whatever.
Right.
And because my question is, why even tell us about her background with psychology if that really is not going to be used? Because it doesn't do anything else for the character other than just make us more intrigued by her, but there's no payoff with it.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Because you could have had the exact same story if you hadn't said that. And we just see
But
her.
you're talking about a movie that's building into a larger world. That's, you know what I mean?
I
The
just want to.
world is art. The movie is Arthur's world. It's
Right.
not about the larger world. The movie is Arthur's world, and that's
But
it.
but think back to like how they introduced and did characters in the other one. It was about like Arthur's world.
Barely. Like, I mean,
And
they barely introduced them. Like, the only time you saw Bruce was that. And then the only time you saw them outside of that was they're saying that this was the night that the Waynes were killed. Other
and
than that, that didn't matter, except
right.
for this is the night that the Waynes were killed.
And,
Other than that, they didn't matter.
right.
And not outside of Arthur's story with Thomas Wayne, being his quote his father from what his mother said, but they're
Exactly.
only inside of his world.
Exactly. So why build out a character is that has layers when you're not doing anything with it?
The only reason they built her out was to plant that doubt into Arthur about who she is and what she's doing there, and then she, as the antagonist, manipulates her way into being by his side.
And that's it.
That's it.
Like,
I mean, that's it.
and
It's not as deep as
as they want you
you
to
could have
believe it
thought.
is, it
Yeah.
could have been. And that's why I feel like the story gets kind of lazy. Is
So, but in the end, this is Arthur's end.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I have
in
no
the end,
problem.
that's it.
I have no problem with the where this movie ends
Yeah.
with him dying.
And
Like I
we
figured
joked
he would.
around after it was all said and done. We joked around that if this wasn't such a very different Gotham and a very different movie, that's the origin of Heath Ledger's Joker. He started cutting his face.
Yeah, I
You know how
mean,
I got these scars? But yeah,
like I said, I never expected him to be like the Joker because that's not what they ever said. But like I have no problem. Like everyone's like, "Oh, the ending explained," or people are mad at how it ends. I'm like, "What'd you expect? They told you from the beginning what this was."
the title is The Final Goodbye.
The folly of two, madness for two. Um So I didn't have a problem with him. I figured he was going to die. I just was trying to figure out how, like, what was going to happen.
Yeah. Well, in that, so he does in that when he basically turns when he abandons the Joker, when he abandons Joker and he's just Arthur. It's after he got beat by the guards after returning, after somebody who idolized him was killed by said guards who then got away with that murder.
Yeah.
After he discovered that basically he was everybody from Puddles from his talk with Puddles, that he became basically everybody who hated him, who treated him like crap, who made him scared of the world. And he is set up by those guards and killed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because they don't escort, they escort prisoners like that, killers and stuff. Even in the psych ward, when they took him earlier, they escorted him, shackles and all. They just brought him, told him to come on, disappeared around the corner, and that was it.
I think the actor that played Puddles is amazing. Like, his scene is so good. Okay, here's a question. When he was doing like a voice as the lawyer,
Yeah.
what did you think of?
I thought of Lane Smith from My Cousin Vinny.
See, my mind went to Gregory Peck from To Kill a Mockingbird as Atticus Finch.
Okay.
Because Atticus Finch is supposed to be like one of the great literary heroes, and the way he talked and thinking about that film and everything. And I haven't heard anyone else say that.
I have not seen that since school, so
well, see, I watched it 2 years ago because we were doing it in school, like we were teaching it, and that was
I
where
just got
like
the Southern lawyer, you know what I mean?
and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you get a chance, check it out, everybody. Like, because I feel like that's kind of what he was doing. So Atticus Finch is supposed to be this big, famous, like, icon. Like, think about, this is the 80s, that movie. And he's kind of doing like what that lawyer would be, because think about what Atticus Finch is, the kind of, he's portraying a innocent man that's guilty, or and everything, or people are saying is guilty, and everyone in their minds already condemned him. But Atticus is, taking on this case, and I think that's kind of what Arthur was doing.
Right. No, that absolutely makes sense, though. I wasn't sure what you like. I just went to the Southern lawyer route.
So, I mean, that is where my brain went, was because I was like, that reminds me of like a Gregory Peck type thing.
And honestly, that sounds like that probably would have been what they were getting at when they were discussing and creating that scene.
So, okay, anything else you got left for Joker?
No. I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really great movie, and I think people should see it. And I mean, love it or hate it, I think they put a lot of work into it, and I think it turned out well. Like I said, it's not going to be something that I'm going to watch repeatedly, but I will definitely throw it in every few years, maybe 1 and 2, and just see how it goes.
Yeah. But okay.
Because they're really good.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our news a little bit. And we're going to talk Superman. Da-dun-dun-dun. First up, we have Superman Good Guy Gang, an upcoming graphic novel kids comic that has Guy Gardner and Hawk Girl. That's going to be kind of to get ready for James Gunn's Superman for kids. Will I probably buy this for my children? You know I will. Next up, we have Walmart's new exclusive Superman McFarlane. It looks just
Superman.
different. It's just different enough that I'm like, dang it, I'm gonna buy it. It's got a cloth cape. It looks like a smaller body mold. The face looks more detailed and everything, but it's just a plain old regular Superman. But will I
Right.
buy it?
It's just an Action Comics Superman, but it's the gold label.
Uh, uh, yeah, I'm I'm gonna buy it. So,
Right.
and then as we prepare to talk about the Superman and Lois episodes, this was announced. Elizabeth Henstring will star as Lex Luthor's daughter in the final season of Superman and Lois. Um,
Why am I blanking on her parts from everything? I saw it and I've seen it again and again, and I'm like, I can't
Agents of
think of
Shield,
where she's from.
Agents of Shield,
Okay.
and
Okay. Yep.
she directed some episodes of Superman and Lois.
Oh, fantastic. I
And
did not
then
know that. That's awesome.
this got dropped yesterday during the day. It's a picture of Tyler Hoechlin here, and it appears that he has a new suit. And it looks basically that it's less padded. It is a little darker, and maybe we have more of a 3D style, um, chest sigil. So we didn't get to see the boots or anything, but it does look, like I said, just enough to look like it might be a new suit. Like I'm looking at the colors around him, to see if it's like through a lot of filtering, but it doesn't look like it. Just looks like the blue is darker, like it is a different suit. But I don't know. It's worth debating because it looks like this could be from a scene where he was fighting. Because look at the stuff, but his suit's not tore up, so I don't know. It could be a new
Right.
suit.
Well, they completed wrapping. They wrapped on this show, didn't they?
Oh yeah, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this literally could be early or something later on in the series.
And if that's it just kind of, it's one of those things like, why release that yesterday? You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, getting into it, a lot happens out in front of Victoria Mays.
I know,
Or
but
Vicky
I'm just saying,
Mays.
like, why release that image? Because, it's just like one of those, like, because of the emotional stakes. But let's get into it. Are you ready to talk about it? Let's talk about the
I'm
2-hour,
ready to talk about it.
2-episode premiere of Superman and Lois, the final season. The End and the Beginning is the name of the first episode. Now, I went back to my handy dandy notebook and I took notes because
We need to get you your own Blues Clues music. So every time you go, my handy dandy notebook, we can just do a like your own Krypton Report Blues Clues music.
yes, Krypton Report Blues Clues. So let's start. My first question before we really get into the episode, and I pose this to all of our listeners because Solomon and I rewatched the season 3 finale. Well, just the Doomsday fight. I wanted to watch the whole episode, but we didn't get to. And my question is, how do we feel about Doomsday getting more Kryptonian powers? Because we've
Well,
seen
so
now,
he started off as this Doomsday started off as Bizarro. He already had the powers,
but
the ice
I
breath
mean,
and
period.
the
But I
flame
mean,
breath, the
period.
ice eyes and the flame breath.
But I
Oh,
mean,
you mean
period.
overall?
Like Doomsday, because we've seen now Doomsday getting heat vision and other things through the Death of Superman animated film. The way they did Doomsday here.
It's like the evolution of Superman. He got more powers as time went on.
But that's my question. Do you like, because now Doomsday's flying. Now Doomsday, has all the powers basically that Superman has too. Do we like that he's adapting and getting more Kryptonian powers? Or
I
do we
feel
like it
like it
being,
depends on the interpretation You know,
Okay.
being either an abomination brought back to life, or a combination of Kryptonian human DNA or whatever he is in BBS, uh, transforming Zod's body, and then in this one, Bizarro being transformed, and this Bizarro already possessing and knowing and using all of those abilities prior to that. But if we were to ever see a live action Doomsday in a cinematic universe, in a more traditional Doomsday story, I would much rather prefer him be like the one we got in the Death of Superman. Um, the one we got in the Death of Superman, the comic book, and like no more than what they did in the animated film, because he's barely got any sort of powers or anything in that one. He's more classic in that one.
Yeah,
But
he's got the heat vision though.
yeah,
But that's just been my thing, like
but
observing.
that's the idea we discussed about him being basically some sort of perverted Kryptonian like DNA from when they possessed Superman in Justice League War, when Desaad had him hooked up to his machines.
Yeah,
Because he came from Darkseid. So in a sense, that one was in a way Kryptonian based, modern Kryptonian based, because Doomsday is ancient Kryptonian based, and there are no powers, and he was force evolved to become the ultimate killing machine and the ultimate adapting machine.
I will just say that I am really done with the Death of Superman story after this. Like for a
Yeah,
while.
if they don't, if they do it in the films, like it needs to be like after, you know,
After Corn
a
Sweat.
trilogy and some Justice League movies, like,
I need at
and
least
when you're
20
talking,
years.
it's like after the Infinity Saga. Like,
I need to be like
let's get a universe of DC movies before we hit on, even if Corn Sweat's still doing it in say 12 years.
I need 20
But
years. I need to be
then we get a Death of Superman in the cinematic universe. If we got a Death of Superman in the cinematic universe after having him in a universe that's been like built and running like the MCU, and we did the Death of Superman in 10 to 12 years in the cinematic universe, and it was more true to like a comic book origin, not something changed and new. Like, I think people would be all for it. I think you would be all for it.
I need like 20 years. I need to be like having grandkids. I need to be having my grandkids like, Grandpa, what's this Death of Superman story? You know what I'm saying? Like that's where I need. I mean,
When this story came out 50 years ago.
yeah, like I need that type of Death of Superman, because I just it's kind of like it's just being
No,
used a
no,
lot.
I think it's the idea of Superman is so powerful, and it's the idea of writing stories and threats with him, that how do you get bigger than his death?
Well, I
You know
mean
what I
that's
mean? That's what
well,
they're. I think that's what that why they keep just going back to that idea.
I mean that's what you and I was trying to find the picture I made earlier. Like we've talked about before. How many times have we talked about before? It seems like some people, when it comes to Superman, they're like, "Oh, he only matters when he dies." Like
Yeah.
to make him matters, like we have to uh kill him off. So, but enough of that. Okay. That was just my quick conversation as I started here. Let's get into the episode. The episode starts showing the image that's used on our cover of like the sharded cape, and it's floating, and we slowly go through, and then it cuts to um Jordan blowing out the fire in the barn with his cold breath. And like quickly we find out that Lex Luthor bought the hotel, and there's changes happening at Luthor Corp. and everyone's like trying to figure out what's happening, okay? And from the beginning, Janine and I are both like, oh, so we're not like starting like, there's like recap stuff, right? We don't really move the Doomsday fight in Superman until a little bit later. And it was and I'm sitting there like, okay, so it's not like we're gonna open with the fight and then move the story. Like the story is going on while the fight is going on, and this fight takes a long time.
A long time, and they go far out. Like they go well past the moon.
And so we have Jordan listening for his grandpa / Sam. And then we have our first flashback scene with Clark and Lois. What'd you think about that? The flashback, the way they did the flashbacks and stuff.
They did the flashbacks so well in this episode. It's one of the things that they do so well in this series, because I think still my favorite episode of the series is the flashback episode in season 1.
Yeah, I mean, so we do a flashback back to the
afternoon after he tells Lois that he's Superman.
And I'm laughing because the dialogue was so good, where he tells her, "I love you," and she's like, "Why didn't you tell me now?" And then she references him seeing her on finding out that she was in love with him, and she
during the Superman interview in that flashback episode from season 1.
And then she makes the comment, he's like, "Oh, you probably got upset when I called you dorky," and he's like, "No, I am a little dorky sometimes." Like,
but that's season 1. That's episode and writing from season 1 that they continue and pick up in season 4.
It's so good. And he's like, "It was the happiest day of my life." And then she goes, "You want to go upstairs and make it the second happiest day of your life?" And he gets the really cute where he's like, "I've never," and she's like, "In your childhood bedroom?" And he's like, no, just I've never
never.
And it was adorable, and it was so cute, and it brought that smile, but at the same time you kind of know, like, you're seeding us for the feels, like I messaged you before, like yesterday evening, I was like, I don't know if I'm emotionally ready for this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I told you that I welled up and Jamie cried, but I didn't tell you, like, prepare for the emotional anguish.
Oh no.
When you watch these episodes.
Me and Janine were both like holding hands and watching it, and Solomon came home, today's like, "Are we gonna watch Superman and Lois?" I said, "I watched it first." And I was like, because I wanted to make sure is everything you can watch, and then I'm gonna watch it like with him, like the Doomsday stuff, and some of the stuff with him, because I think he would understand, he'd like it, but at the same time, I'm just like, I told him, I was like, it's strong, and then we have this Lex versus Lois at the paper. Like, this Lex, man, how are you feeling about Lex?
He's mean, he's evil, he's a bad guy, and he's cruel, and he's completely egotistical. I mean, he's portraying a great Lex. I mean, I'd be pissed too if I was falsely imprisoned for 17 years. Yeah, I'd be pissed, but also he's Lex Luthor, and he's got billions of dollars, and he's evil, and he's tried to kill Superman forever. And his only excuse is, "I told you." Like, all the evidence literally points to you being guilty, and everybody's supposed to take your word on it because I told you so. And that's just his ego talking.
What I think is great is, much like how this Clark Superman is farther in his journey, this Lex is farther in his journey.
Yeah.
And what I think's interesting is it's like one of those, like, he got punished for a crime he didn't commit. All the other stuff he gets away with, but he goes to jail and gets punished for something that wasn't him, even though he's guilty of much more things. We have um, we have a flashback later of Clark and Lois in the Daily Planet, and it's funny because like they're watching a news story about not being able to confirm what happens with Superman and fighting Intergang, and then Clark shows up and he like pops in and is like, I can confirm the details.
Yeah.
And Lois finds a little tiny piece of kryptonite in his neck, and he says, where do they keep getting kryptonite? And it's shortly after they're married. And they say that he says, you worry, and she makes the statement that worrying is part of being in love.
Yeah.
Even though he's Superman. Like, so they're showing, they're kind of seeing like how like there's this attitude, there's this air about he's never, we don't have to worry, he's Superman, you know? And even
Yeah.
Sam Lane later is like, he's Superman, he always comes back. So okay. So Otis and Gretchen have Sam locked up. Okay, and they're gonna kill Sam. He tells him what put one in the head and one in the heart for Sam Lane. And Gretchen, makes the announcement that her real name's not Gretchen. Who do you think she is? Like, do you think she's a big character or not?
I mean, I hadn't given it any thought,
I
if
don't
she
know
was
who
somebody else.
I don't know who it be, because we have this other character that I don't know the name of. I can't remember the name of, because that's with Lex, a younger female who's not a Tessmacher, who's not a Mercy Graves, who's a new character.
He said her name once, but
Yeah,
I didn't catch it.
I have the episode playing here with the subtitles on, so I'm looking out for it while we watch. But
There you
I just
go.
kind of wonder. Now, one thing I did like, one thing I did like in this is we found out that Lex has a daughter from his ex-wife, who we don't get a name
Mhm.
for, and his daughter's name is Elizabeth. Okay. I like that they went with Elizabeth, and maybe she goes by Liz to get those double L's,
Yeah.
because I'm glad they didn't go the Lena route, because some people won't realize if they followed along and say the Arrowverse shows that in the comics, sometimes Lena is Lex's sister and sometimes it's his daughter. So
Yeah.
I'm glad they kind of went with just a new name to kind of break that up. Um, so in my notes, I wrote, I really want a flashback of Lex, like of Michael here as Lex with like the business suit and everything, clean shaven sometime in this series. And I laugh because we do get a Lex flashback in this, where he's at the Daily Planet arguing with Luthor, and he has like the lion's mane of hair. And you and I look at each other, and she's like, that is some chunky hair. And
Yeah, it is.
it is big. And what I found interesting is he's still kind of wearing the jeans and leather jacket look.
Mm-hmm. And with the beard, he's like
Yeah.
you said, lion's mane. It is. It's all the way around and down.
And and like, it is kind of like Lex Luthor Jr. was in the comics. Like how he had all that hair and everything at the death of Superman. But I was just like, I was just more shocked by like he wasn't like in the suit or anything like that. Like he still was in like the leather jacket and jeans look for Lex Luthor. Um, we learned that Lex is the one who pretty much discovered kryptonite, because there's the line of dialogue about like revealing it to the world.
Yeah.
Um, we have Sam get buried alive. And meanwhile, Jordan's been like listening for him the whole time, trying to find where Sam is. And eventually, he gets the idea to listen for the lady, and he hears her. And that's where they're able to go. And one of my favorite shots in this whole thing is when Otis goes to hit Jordan, and he like twists his arm and throws him. He does like the Smallville throw, into a truck. I was kind of.
Calls her Amanda.
Is that what it was? Oh,
Yeah.
the lady. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of was bummed that he didn't break Otis's arm.
I'm surprised Otis is alive after that.
You think? Because I was too.
That was man, he threw him into that freaking the side of that. I don't know if it was a crane or it was like a junkyard, so it was something very much like a crane or car press or something. But he threw him into the side of that thing like so fast and so hard. Like that wasn't just throwing somebody 30 feet and knocking them out.
Oh, I know. Like it was. I expected him to be crushed, and that kind of be like Jordan's accidental first kill.
Yeah, like ragdoll physics on his body after that.
And he's able to save Sam, and through this whole thing, like we see, Jordan and Jonathan really kind of trying to work together, and you can tell that everybody in the family right now is at a very level, like emotions, like they don't know what's going on. They have to kind of play it cool with because Clark's technically still fighting Doomsday. Now let's jump back to the Doomsday battle, right? Oh wait, hold on, one more thing. They reference Jonathan as Kid Superboy. They call the kid Superboy. So I just like hearing that. But so we have the Doomsday battle, okay? And we actually see more spikes grow from his eyes and from his face to get a little bit more of that classic Doomsday look.
Yeah, he does, as the fight progresses, become more and more Doomsday-like.
And Jania said, what I like about this Doomsday is his face still has hints in his eyes of tragedy and of the quote unquote humanity. So, so during that battle, Clark and Doomsday are fighting, and he starts using his heat vision towards Doomsday. And there's this big explosion. Were you thinking solar flare?
I was thinking maybe he could solar flare in that moment, or if he was just, or if this was going to be like the blast that was going to kill him and Doomsday. Like I thought they were both gonna basically end up crashing down or whatever, dead, and that was just going to be like their final impact against each other.
So did I. Like, because we've been reading the New 52, and where we were, like, he was solar flaring left and right. So that was kind of my thought, was like he was just like going full board with the solar flare.
But I did not expect him to do what Luther asked in the beginning.
Hold on. We're gonna
We'll get there. But
one beat that I missed was when Lex comes into the diner and Jordan and Jonathan are sitting there eating. And that tense scene. And I looked at Jania and I was like, because everyone's not really paying attention to this. I'm like, how fun it be? Because at this time, Lex doesn't know about Jordan or about,
or doesn't know that Superman is Clark.
He hasn't put it all together yet. Spoilers, he does. But I told Jania, like, what if Jordan had just been like real fast broke his neck, and just looked around the room, and everyone looked. He's just like, and everyone's like, just went back to eating. Like, it's just like, boom, snaps his neck, and everyone like just shrugs it off, like, Okay, so now let's get to the really bad part of this episode. The one where it really leaves you like, oh my god, they did that. We get okay. I don't want to talk about it, but we will. We get a flashback of Lois giving birth, and like how her and Clark interact. But then what happens is after the quote unquote solar flare, Jordan hears something returning, and Doomsday is alive. And Doomsday returns to Smallville and drops Clark's body and then flies off, and he ripped out Superman's heart.
Yeah, we don't see it. So he's giving him the heat vision, and he flies right in and he punches him in the chest. And there's a massive explosion, and the asteroid blows up. And Superman is floating out there, and he looks dead. But there's a large chunk of rock floating over his chest, and you can't see it. And then Doomsday flies him back, throws him down with like the worst rock physics I've ever seen. Like he just hits the ground like boom. But when Lois rolls him over, it's not just that he looks dead. Like they don't show it either on his chest. But then yes, Doomsday shows up to Lex Luthor and holds out his hand and opens his hand, and he has his heart in his hand. He ripped his heart out of his chest. He said, "When he's dead, bring me his heart."
And I was like the fact that Doomsday is alive and he has to have some sort of cognitive ability. He's not just this rage killing machine, because he shows up to Lex, he gives him the heart, and then he's like, good boy. And then Doomsday disappears.
Well, so during the fight, Superman rips out one of the XK spikes and stabs Doomsday in the heart. Doomsday appears to die. Like the light goes out in his body and everything, because like this Doomsday like lights up, and the light goes out in his body. He kind of slumps over, and then it all just comes back. It like sucks the XK inside of his body, and he comes back.
So he, like I said, he's not really the beast that we think of Doomsday as, like the mindless, killing machine. There's more, like I said, cognitive to him. Now, I lost my train of thought. Okay, hold on. The episode ends, like I said, where they're over top the body and they're crying and freaking out, and you have townspeople seeing this. It's Superman is on the ground, and you have the Jordan and Jonathan walking over to his body, and Lois is losing it. And that's
tries to stop them from seeing it, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, they run past their mom. They got to see that. I mean, and this is all intercut with footage that we have seen between Clark and Lois's journey over these three seasons, I guess you could say.
A lot of last season of him taking care of her, carrying her up the stairs, washing her hair, that type of stuff, putting her to bed,
and their relationship. And then so that's where they are. Now I want to jump back to something that Luthor says when he's talking to that lady. He mentions a certain name, James. What name is that he mentions?
So he gets a box from that lady, and he says, and they say that the box was made by Milton. Yes, and he's a real brainiac.
Yes. Okay.
So yeah, is this like a Milton Fine Brainiac situation?
We're gonna find out.
Where did the Milton Fine name start?
Well, if you joined us on Mullet, bro. People can't see me react, but that's where we are. Is like the Milton Fine Brainiac. Is what
Tyler's jumping at me like,
step up,
bust you up, yeah.
But Um. So here's my question to you. Okay, the pieces are being put there, and I said this to Jania. This is they said they're gonna do something different, right? With this Death of Superman, they've already done one thing big different here. Is that Doomsday is still alive?
He's
Okay.
not a mindless killing machine, and he ripped out his heart.
Um. After everything that you and I have been reading, okay, how do I want to say this? Do you think that they could, in this, with everything that's going on, transform Clark's body into Super Doomed and have almost this Doomsday battle type thing between almost because he's heard his body's trying to regenerate and potentially he could be transformed into that type of Super Doom. Plus, if they bring in Brainiac, that was like the last element of that
Yeah,
story.
that would be. I mean, that would be something that they've never done. That'd be something interesting and something pretty cool.
You know, and you and I kind of speculated like, what if, and we'll get into this in the next episode, he doesn't come back. So now
Right.
let,
Well,
let
like in this first episode, like they do some interesting things. With like so there's the relationship between Jordan and Jonathan, and Lois is going through her radiation treatment. They mention that she's going through radiation, that her brain's foggy from the radiation,
yeah,
and
she's coming
they're
out of yeah.
yeah, and they're worried about Superman, they're worried about their dad, and Jordan is listening for Grandpa, and then when Lois walks away, he listens to John's heartbeat, and he starts talking about how his heartbeat never rises, and how, certain things, and he talks about the way he's built, and
He never gets into the fear.
yeah, not giving into the fear and stuff. I like this actor playing Jonathan, the material he's given, he's doing well with it.
Janine and I had that similar
I think there's
conversation.
gonna be more with those two this season.
I do too.
And I'm wondering what they're gonna do, if they're gonna go, more superhero route, if John is gonna eventually get any powers, um, what's gonna happen with Jordan.
I really feel like they're remixing things and making it fresh. Now, here is my question. And this is part of why I wanted to watch the full episode end of last season, not just the Doomsday Battle.
Yeah, the finale. I watched the whole episode
Okay,
yesterday
good,
at
good,
7 o'clock.
I didn't get to, but this is you're really wrapped up in the story, okay, in these two episodes, but you can feel where the absence of character is because where is John Henry and where is Kyle and Chrissy? There is no dialogue
Yeah,
even
they
given.
were there they were absolutely there at the end of the finale episode. They were all downtown
There is
in
no
Smallville.
dialogue given to where they are, and especially the way the second episode goes, because there's so many parts where I'm like, you would think Kyle would be here, or
They
John Henry.
mention Chrissy, but they don't.
Well,
They
yeah,
never
yeah,
show her. They never say where she is or anything.
and that's my biggest complaint right now, is
And the
because
same thing with John Henry. He
because
he was
I
with Lana at the end of the season.
and that is like I said. So let's with that in mind, we'll talk it through. But the first episode, it didn't bother me the way things were playing out. But in the second one, we'll talk it through. So the second episode
Well, the first
entitled
episode, we don't get any Lana.
No,
They
we
don't.
don't. Not at all.
Lana
But like
and
I
Sarah show up at the beginning of this episode.
but but the way that episode is structured, it didn't bother me.
Well, the way it's structured, I mean, honestly, too, with the flashbacks and things, but time-wise, season 3 finale continues into this. This is the
Yes.
same night. This is the time going on. And then when this episode ends, the next one picks up at the very same spot. This 3 episodes are in the same night,
Well,
or at least a
episode.
chunk of.
Well, that first episode, that's several days. If you look at it, like it's it's not just like one day. Like there's time because we see them in the diner during the day. They're looking for Sam. It's day. Then they're burying Sam at night.
Okay, so the fight happens at night. So then the
The
most of
f-
it happens the next day,
so the
and then they're
fight takes
burying Sam at night. The fight takes like 24 hours.
it's there's time in that battle. And so we're on like, the next night or so, and like you said, it picks up and it kind of like backs up to where the last episode ended with Doomsday returning, but now we're seeing more of the townspeople. And we're seeing things from a different perspective. And this is where, like we said, all the townspeople see this and they start going towards Superman. And Lana pulls up and sees it, and she's with
Sarah.
Sarah, and Sarah's the one that kind of acknowledges his mom. And Lana starts saying, "People get back, Lois Lane's close friend, Superman." And she's the one, but we have this new character, Chuck. And I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but Chuck sees and Chuck puts it together and later goes to Lana and says, it's about the Kents. And Chuck basically tells Lana, like, I figured it out. Like, I know that the Kents, Clark,
Yeah.
is
And it's
Superman.
from an emotional standpoint too. Just
I just
seeing
would
them
have
how they
liked.
reacted. He died. He recently lost his wife, and he knows the
But that's a
pain of actually losing somebody, and
but
that's
that
how he put it together.
but that's a scene, man. Like, could you imagine him going to the farm and looking at Lois and being like, I know what it's like to lose my spouse, I lost my wife, you lost your husband. And he says, and you do kind of the Spider-Man 2 thing, like, I won't tell anybody. Because, it's kind of like, it's coming from Lana where she's like, he states he's not going to tell anybody because of everything that Superman has done for the town, for the world. Like, how much better would that scene have been if it's this character, Chuck, going to Lois and the boys and saying that to them?
Right. Well,
And then,
they plant his character in the episode. He's in the diner. He does stand up to Luther. Are you boys everything okay? And
yeah,
then he's outside saying goodbye to like somebody at like the corner store kind of a thing when Superman is when the monster returns with Superman's body.
so then we go to the forest. Oh man, the fortress. Jordan takes Clark and we see Lara. And my favorite line is when he's arguing with her. And he's like, it's Kryptonian technology, you can fix him. And she's like, we can't without his heart. The organ's missing. And he goes, I'll take him and I'll fly him into the sun. And I had to laugh because, like, I was like, Ginny, I'm like, that's kind of like the cure all in every Superman comic. When he like loses his power, whatever, just fly him through the sun. And
Right.
so I like that they threw that line out, like, as a possible, like, no, that's not going to work. So I appreciated that because it really, works. But he gets put in suspended animation. And I put in my notes, like, the thing about this world, this Earth that we're on, there's no Kara. There doesn't seem like there's any other heroes. Like Clark wasn't part of like a Justice League or any kind of team. It was just him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the sole hero on this Earth. They did talk about that in the last season. No, the end of season 2 with the Bizarro Earth.
And speaking of Bizarro Earth, in my notes I put Tal. Will he return, or are we just done with him? Like, is it potential that he could return as a in one episode or something?
Mm-hmm.
I do really like so we have Lana and Sarah show up and at the farm, and this is when we find out that Luther bought the historical hotel and the mayor approved of it because Luther has all these shell companies that he bought the hotel and stuff through. But
yeah,
and I put in my notes, like, This is the episode they start to have to accept that Superman's dead, like everybody does. And I thought, how are they going to explain Clark's absence?
Yeah. Well, Lois writes the article, "The Death of Superman."
Yeah, she does. And for her paper, and I just want to point out, like, when they say Eckworth Industries, isn't that a Superboy reference? Wasn't that Lex's, like, the identity that he assumed, right? We talked about that previously.
That
Yeah.
sounds familiar.
It um so I thought that was a nice callback to earlier in this series, but it is reference to Superboy the series. One line we get that I was kind of interested by was we get that what was her name you said? Anna or whatever. Amanda.
Yeah.
See, all A names run together. But she says that Janet Olsen from the Daily Planet wants to do an interview with you. I was like, Janet? Who's Janet? Like,
yep.
I'm like, why?
They
why
went
not?
They went the gender bent route with the Olsen here, kind of like
But we have Jimmy Olsen cast this season.
Do we?
Yeah.
Well, I forgot about that.
So I was like, are they going to do something different with him, with his character? You know, why? Or if it's not, like, why not be a Cat Grant or a Ron Troop if we're just going to throw a name out there? You know?
Yeah.
But that's when we have the Amanda trying to get Lex to return to Metropolis. You know, to go back because Luthor Corp needs his guardianship, his guidance, and everything. And he has the really cold line about Superman's dead. Let's just enjoy the moment. And I was like, dang, like, this Lex is hardcore. Most evil, hardcore Lex. And I bet if we did a battle of Lex Luthors, this is the Lex that would win. Like in a fist fight. Like, you just put every Lex in a room together, this one's coming out walking.
I mean, he is mean, and if you just put like the ones that are just like the people, because if you do live action ones, yes,
yeah, like we
live
did
action ones, yeah. Because I was thinking of different versions of Lex. Like he's pretty badass in other versions, mostly comics in animation.
Yeah, but I'm like referencing our, like we did our Batman battle bracket. If we did a Lex Luthor battle bracket, this is the Lex that's coming out, the champion.
Yeah, Warren Eckworth. Yes, that is the name he goes by in Superboy.
I thought so.
Yup.
So we have this scene where, like, the boys on here
love that pull for the series, pulling from Superboy TV.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We need to reference, like, that show. Like, I would love to see Stacy appear. Like, it's not going to happen now because we know this is all wrapped up, but like in some sort of like Superman media, just giving her the credit she's due. But like, the boys are very impulsive in this episode, the way that they're like trying to make plans and not talk. And Jordan, it's about like, I got powers trump being psycho anytime. But they're not thinking that Lex has been plotting and planning and is, ahead of them. He has money and power and desire. And Jordan makes that appearance to Lex at the bar is an amazing scene because he's like hovering there and Lex just swats him away. And he says, if you come after...
He even steps him down.
Yeah, he's like, you come towards an enemy, you prepared to kill.
And no, he stepped, like, he's floating and he swats him off and he walks towards him. He continues to walk towards him and he backs up, like he keeps the same distance between them.
And Jordan flies out, and this is where Lex puts it together, because so he baits, like, this is the scene that pissed me off, is like he goes into the diner And Sarah thinks she's going to hatch this plan to keep Lex in the diner, by talking to him and, being nice or whatever. While Jonathan is going through um, his apartment or Lex's, hotel room looking for Superman's heart or whatever. And then Lana shows up and her and Sarah talk, and Lex gets up and leaves. Well, this was probably one of the best parts as far as tension is Lois gets a phone call, and it's like it says Clark, it's Clark's voice, but then it changes to like, both of your sons are in danger. You have to save one by pushing, was it 1 for Jonathan, 2 for Jordan?
I don't remember. They were each assigned a number. Push 1 to save Jordan. Push
Yeah.
2 to save Jonathan.
And we're cutting back and forth between where Jordan, because we learned that Superman's heart beats 3 times, unlike a human heart that beats twice. I'd never heard that in any other media, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, just some way of differentiating a Kryptonian heart from a human heart.
And so what happens is Jordan, of course, goes to find the heart. He finds a Superman action figure that's beeping. And Lois is at the house looking for the boys. She has the phone. And we see someone coming for Jordan. Well, it's Lana. Lana gets Jonathan, sorry, coming for Jonathan. It's Lana. Lana gets Jonathan to leave the house after Sarah had told her what their plan was. But then we see that Jordan's trapped by a team who have, of course, kryptonite weapons. Lex knows about kryptonite, man. Like, these kids are not thinking. And Lex is right there and has him and has like a device that's shooting a high-pitched frequency into his head. And so while that's going on, Lois has the phone and she presses a button for one of the boys. We don't see which one it is. We don't know which button she pressed to save, because it says if you don't pick, they'll both die. She pushes a button. Okay. Well, in a few seconds, Jonathan walks in and we see Lex in the containment unit, confronts Jordan. He has, the heart. He drops it on the ground. Jordan can't reach it. And then Lex steps on it and twists it. And the way the scene plays out, I feel like Lois picked Jordan because Lex lets him live and says something about something has to pay or whatever. And that's when he crushes the heart.
Yeah, he says, I could kill you, but I won't. But I do have to take something. And that's when he smashes the heart. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, it does sound like she presses a button and it does say like, I feel like she would, I don't know. It's really tough to say which one she would choose. Obviously, they're both her kids. Like you could even make a choice. Because she just had this conversation with Lana about, because she yelled at him for like, you got to go back and back first. So she yells at Jordan for approaching Lex and giving him the pieces he needs to discover that he's Superboy and that Clark is Superman. And she yells at him and she says that I warned you, you can't go after Lex. You can't go near him. You're not ready. You can't, you're not your father. And she kind of backs off a little bit and says, not yet. And then so he's questioning that with Jonathan, like, and he says, do you agree with her that I won't be like dad or as good as dad? And he says, I don't think anybody can be as good as dad,
which is an exact true statement. Like,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's the whole reason he's Superman. He's the first one. And then he goes again, and then when she is having the conversation with Lana about, she gets called to go, and that's when she finds out that Chuck knows who they are, but that Jordan, she has this conversation about Jordan using his powers for fame, using his powers to prove himself, and that she had hoped that the powers were going to help him through the issues that he had, and she's not sure. And she says that he might be the worst person to be able to have gotten these powers.
That's a little
So
harsh.
so picking at that moment, you can really see it. Like, does she say that because maybe Jordan shouldn't have these powers and she chooses Jonathan, or does she pick Jordan because she feels guilty for saying those things about her son? Because she has to think honestly, especially with those abilities. She has to think honestly about who her kids are and who Jordan is and who he's going to become. So, like, you can really honestly see it from either point of view. Who would she pick in that moment if she picked anybody? And for what reason? There's a lot of reasons there that I just had to go through. I had to go all the way back to come up to that idea.
Yeah.
You have to go all the way back through the episode.
So it was intense. And so what we find out is that Elizabeth came to the DOD when Lex was getting out of prison, because he's been out of prison for a month and he hasn't returned over a month to Luthor Corp. And the only person who knows where Elizabeth is Sam Lane, because they got someone to flip at the DOD. And I kind of laugh because I'm like, oh, well, you almost killed the one person.
You're lucky he didn't die.
But the episode ends, and this is where they did something once again that's very different. Is Jordan basically is telling them about, like, Clarkson's suspended animation, and they're going to kind of say goodbye to Clark, and they see him at the fortress, and Lara tells him that he prepared something, and then Clark appears because he is now programmed in the fortress as the fortress AI.
Yeah.
And it looks like he has a little bit of a new suit. It looks like his black costume that he had with some extra stuff added onto it.
Yeah, but it looks a little more like probably like a traditional
Kryptonian,
not so formal, not so superheroic, fighting type suit, maybe something more leisurely.
And that's where the episode ends, is that they have the Kryptonian AI that is their dad. And that's, you and I had speculated before, like, oh my God, what if they did something as crazy as they don't have any Superman in the current timeline? It's either flashbacks or now we have him as this AI. So that Tyler is present. I'm like, what if that's something? And I'm
still very weary on that notion.
So am I. Like, so am I, dude. Like, just because I have a prediction doesn't mean that's what I want to happen.
Yeah. I'm unsure if that is actually his heart.
I had that thought too.
Like, is it not? I could see
him doing
both
that
ways.
Because because Jania and I talked, she's like, Lex is so egotistical, about things, and Lex knows the family secret.
Yep, he has all the control now.
And basically. I said, I still would have taken the busted up heart and took it to the fortress. Like, you can repair it too. Like, it's here, repair it, and we'll see how things play out. Like, it's definitely a different, like, the whole fact that Doomsday is still alive,
he left it and walked away.
The fact that Doomsday is still alive and out there, just kind of like hiding somewhere, is trippy. But yeah, I mean, it's emotional. I'm in to see what they do. Like, I'm curious. And once again, I'm gonna end this. This is the episode where I'm like, where is John Henry and where is Kyle? Like that, like, it's not even like John Henry's doing a mission for the DOD.
And where is Sophie?
She's with Kyle. She's with Kyle, dude. But there's not even dialogue acknowledging them. That's what bothers me. Well, it's not even like in this episode, like, John Henry's posted out with because Sam's not in this episode, so there's not even like a line of like John Henry's guarding your grandpa in the hospital.
Well,
Because
when
Luther,
they left, the last you saw them like all interacting in the season finale was talk of going to Metropolis, moving to Metropolis. She could go to like the DoD Academy and stuff. Um, so there was talk of that, but this is only within a couple of days. They hadn't even made the decision to leave at that point. So it kind of almost did sound like it though when he was talking to Lana, when John Henry was talking to Lana before they got busy. And then so they could very well have gone off to Metropolis, but still on the day that Superman dies, they disappear to Metropolis.
right, and it's in the
If
paper.
you did
Like,
watch, you probably didn't because you probably watched like iTunes or your wherever you bought it. But the trailer for next week, the 19-second trailer that was out does show John and Nat
yeah, I try not to
sealed up.
watch. I try not to watch those.
Well, I watched it live, so I saw it. It was right at the end.
Yeah.
I watched it live on TV. I rewatched it after I bought the 2 episodes on Prime. So
Gotcha.
so
I
I
know it.
saw it. Normally I don't see those because I don't watch it live because the commercials. We already have to suffer through the CW release schedule. It's a lot to ask to sit through commercials too.
I mean, yeah, but it's like why I can't watch stuff on the CW app. Is because it's the same commercials over and over. So,
but
we have.
so they were. That wasn't entirely my point, though. I know that they're. I know I was getting to that they were coming. But the Lana of it all, we've got Lana in this episode, and she finds out that he has these shell corporations that he bought the hotel across the street. So now she's looking to find other places that he's going to buy. And they talk about 2 other places, Chandler's Field and the Sullivan Farm.
Yeah.
So Chandler's Field, I'm pretty sure that's where the windmill was that was in a few episodes of Smallville before that super aging kid blew up the place.
Hey, that was a great
And then
episode with Ryan.
that wasn't Ryan.
Yeah, it was. No, okay, I'm mixing the 2 together. Anyways,
That was the second kid. Ryan had 2 episodes, and then this is the baby they found in a crater.
Yeah. As I said, I mixed them up for a second.
Yeah.
But man, it's too much to remember. Okay.
We've got a lot to remember.
It's a lot. And then I have real life to remember.
Exactly, right? Like that's just too much. Like Superman pushes out the real life.
But just think we have 8 more episodes to go. That's it. 8 more.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be getting them straight. We're not supposed to have a break. It's supposed to be.
Oh, thank God.
Like it's supposed to be,
Every time I put on Superman, I put on the finale, and she was and Jamie kind of was like, ugh. And then it went off, and I started at like 7, so it was done early. And then I turned on the CW at 8:00, and it came right on, and she was like, ugh. And I'm like, don't you be doing that crap.
Yeah.
And she's like, are they going to release it like they have been? I said, I know. They lose all the freaking momentum with that stop and go release stuff that they do.
And I mean, that's why like I'm done with the CW. Like I refuse to watch on the app. I buy the show and I watch it because I want the show on, the network, but they're supposed to, play it straight.
Thank God.
Because
I'm happy to hear
supposed
that. And maybe you said that before, but thank God.
That's what I read, because, and part of it, think about it, is like they want to be done with this Superman before next year. Think about that. Like
thank
this,
the gods.
This Superman ends in 2024. And this was kind of like our prediction. It didn't work out exactly like we thought, but like the idea that Superman and Lois would end, before 2025, so that next year it's one Superman for DC universe, Next year's the year of Superman, and there's no other competing. So, but that is our episode, and we're gonna try this new outro video here that we've been working on, see how this works. So let's check this out, good listeners. Hit us up on our socials. You'll hear the plugs. Just look for Krypton Report, and let's see how this goes.
Look up in the sky!
Thank you for joining us today on the Krypton Report. We ask you check out our social media. We have a YouTube where we do YouTube specials. You can check out our dollar Patreon, like we talked about, where we do specials. Check the QR code here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on X and all other social media.